The Sunday afternoon sun was warm on Emma's face as she sat on the old wooden bench in Central Park. She held her teddy bear close to her chest. The bear was brown and worn from years of hugs and tears. His name was Mr. Buttons, and he was Emma's best friend. Around her, families were enjoying their day off. Children ran and played while their parents watched with smiles. Emma saw a little boy teaching his grandfather how to throw a ball. She watched a girl sitting on her father's shoulders, laughing as they walked by. These sights made Emma's heart feel heavy. Emma was 8 years old, but she understood things that many children her age did not. She knew that her mother worked very hard. She knew that they did not have much money. She also knew that her mother was often tired and sad even when she tried to hide it. Her mother, Sarah, was at work again today. Sarah worked as a nurse at the big hospital in the city. She often worked on Sundays because they paid her more money for working on weekends. Emma did not mind staying at the park alone. She was used to taking care of herself. Not far from Emma's bench, an old man sat feeding pigeons. His name was Robert Harrison, but Emma did not know this. She did not know that Robert was very rich. She did not know that he owned many businesses. She did not know that his picture was sometimes in the newspaper. Robert looked like any other old man in the park. He wore simple clothes and comfortable shoes. His hair was gray and his face had many lines, but his eyes were kind and he moved slowly, like he was carrying a heavy weight in his heart. Robert came to this park every day now. He had been coming for 6 months, ever since his wife died. Her name was Margaret, and they had been married for 45 years. She was the only family he had left. Now the big house felt empty, and all his money could not fill the hole in his heart. The pigeons knew Robert well. They would come close to him, waiting for the breadcrumbs he always brought. He liked feeding them because it gave him something to do. It made him feel useful again. Emma watched the old man with the pigeons. She had seen him here before. He always sat on the same bench, and he always had bread for the birds. Emma thought he looked lonely, just like her mother sometimes looked when she thought Emma was not watching. As Emma sat there, she began to talk to herself. This was something she did when she felt sad or confused. She would talk to Mr. Buttons, or to the trees, or sometimes just to the air around her. "I wish things were different," Emma said softly to her teddy bear. "I wish Mom didn't have to work so much. I wish she had someone to take care of her like other people do." She looked at the families around her again. She saw how the children had both parents and how some even had grandparents with them. Emma's father had left when she was 5. She barely remembered him now. Her mother's parents had died before Emma was born. "I want my mom to have a father," Emma said, her voice getting a little louder. "She works so hard and never has anyone to take care of her. She takes care of me and she takes care of sick people at the hospital, but nobody takes care of her." Robert heard these words clearly. He had been sitting quietly, throwing breadcrumbs to the pigeons, when the little girl's voice reached his ears. He looked up and saw Emma sitting alone on the bench, holding her teddy bear. Robert's heart felt something it had not felt in months. It was not just sadness, which he felt every day. It was something else. It was like a small light turning on. In a dark room. Emma continued talking, not knowing that anyone was listening. If Mom had a father, maybe he would tell her to rest sometimes. Maybe he would bring her flowers, like I saw on TV. Maybe he would sit with her when she cries at night and thinks I'm sleeping. Robert felt tears coming to his eyes. This little girl, who could not be more than 8 years old, was worried about her mother in a way that touched his heart deeply. He remembered how his own daughter might have felt when she was young, before she grew up and moved far away. Emma stood up and walked closer to the pigeons. She was not afraid of them. She knelt down and watched them eat the breadcrumbs Robert had scattered. "You're lucky," she told the pigeons. "That nice man takes care of you every day. He makes sure you have food. I bet he worries about you when it rains." Robert smiled despite his sadness. This child had a good heart. She noticed things that many adults missed. Just then, Emma's phone rang. It was a small, old phone that her mother had given her for emergencies. Emma answered it quickly. "Hi, Mom," she said. "Yes, I'm still at the park. Yes, I'm being safe. Okay, I'll wait for you by the big tree. Emma hung up the phone and looked at the pigeons one more time. My mom is coming to get me, she told them. She just finished working. She's been working since early this morning. Robert watched as Emma walked to a large oak tree near the park entrance. She sat down at its base and waited patiently. About 10 minutes later, a young woman came walking quickly toward the tree. Sarah looked tired. Her nurse uniform was wrinkled, and her hair was messy from a long day at work. But when she saw Emma, her face lit up with love. "Hi, baby," Sarah said, kneeling down to hug her daughter. "I'm sorry I'm late. We had an emergency at the hospital." "It's okay, Mom," Emma said, hugging her mother tightly. "I made friends with the pigeons, and there's a nice man who feeds them every day." Sarah looked around and saw Robert sitting on his bench. She smiled and waved at him politely. Robert waved back, his heart beating faster as he watched this small family. "Come on, let's go home," Sarah said, taking Emma's hand. "I'll make us some dinner and then we can watch a movie together." As they walked away, Emma turned back to look at Robert. She waved at him and he waved back. Something in his expression made her think of her own wish. Maybe, somehow, there were other people in the world who needed a family. Just as much as she and her mother did, Robert sat on his bench long after Emma and Sarah had left. The pigeons had finished all the breadcrumbs, but he stayed there thinking. For the first time in months, he had heard something that made him want to do more than just sit and feel sorry for himself. He thought about Emma's words, "I want my mom to have a father." Such a simple wish, but it had touched something deep in his heart. He thought about his own loneliness, his empty house, and all the money that could not buy him the one thing he wanted most, a family to love and care for. As the sun began to set, Robert finally stood up from his bench. He walked slowly toward the park exit, but his mind was moving fast. He had an idea forming, something he had not felt in a long time. He had a purpose. Tomorrow he would come back to the park. And maybe, just maybe, he would find a way to help make a little girl's wish come true. Robert could not stop thinking about Emma and her mother. That night, he sat in his big empty house and remembered the little girl's words. "I want my mom to have a father," she had said. Those words kept playing in his mind like a song he could not forget. The next morning, Robert got dressed and went back to the park. He hoped he would see Emma and Sarah again. He wanted to learn more about them. He wanted to understand their story. Robert waited on his bench for hours, feeding the pigeons and watching for the little girl. Finally, around noon, he saw Emma walking toward the playground. She was alone again, carrying her teddy bear. Emma sat on the same bench as yesterday. She looked around the park and noticed Robert sitting in his usual spot. She waved at him and he waved back. This made Emma smile. Robert was too far away to hear what Emma was saying, but he could see her talking to her teddy bear. She looked sad, and this made Robert's heart hurt. He wanted to go over and talk to her, but he did not want to scare her. He was, after all, a stranger. After about an hour, Emma's phone rang. Robert watched as she answered it and then walked to the big oak tree to wait. Soon, Sarah came walking quickly toward the tree, just like yesterday. But this time, Robert decided to follow them. He wanted to know where they lived. He wanted to understand their life better. He stayed far behind them, being careful not to let them see him. Emma and Sarah walked to a bus stop. Robert watched as they got on a city bus. He quickly got in his car and followed the bus. He was careful to stay back so they would not notice him. The bus stopped in front of a group of old apartment buildings. Robert watched as Emma and Sarah got off the bus and walked into one of the buildings. It was not a nice building. The paint was old and peeling. Some of the windows were broken. Robert parked his car and waited. He wanted to see which apartment they lived in. After a few minutes, he saw a light turn on in a window on the third floor. He guessed that was their home. Robert felt sad looking at the building. He thought about his own big house with many rooms. He thought about how unfair life could be. Here was a little girl who just wanted her mother to have a father, and they were living in a place that looked like it needed many repairs. That evening, Robert went home and used his computer. He was good with computers because he had used them to run his businesses. He looked up information about Sarah. He learned that she worked at St. Mary's Hospital. He learned that she was a nurse in the children's ward. Robert smiled when he read this. His wife, Margaret, had volunteered at St. Mary's Hospital for many years before she got sick. She had loved working with the children there. It felt like this was meant to be. The next few days, Robert started making a plan. He wanted to help Emma and Sarah, but he wanted to do it in a way that would not scare them. He decided to help them secretly at first. Robert's first idea was to help with Emma's school. He called the school and talked to the principal. He told her that he wanted to help some families who might need it. He did not tell her his real name. He just said he was someone who wanted to help children. The principal was happy to get his call. She told him that there were several families at the school who needed help buying school supplies and clothes for their children. Robert asked her to make a list of what these families needed. A few days later, Robert went to the school with boxes of supplies. He bought new backpacks, notebooks, pencils, and clothes for 10 different children. He made sure that Emma's name was on the list. When Emma came home from school that day, she was very excited. "Mom, look what I got," she said, showing Sarah a new backpack filled with supplies. The principal said a nice person wanted to help some kids at school. Sarah looked at the expensive backpack and all the new supplies. She was grateful, but she also felt confused. Why would someone help them? She did not know anyone with enough money to buy such nice things. "That was very kind of someone," Sarah said, hugging Emma. "We should remember to always help others when we can, just like this person helped us." Robert felt happy when he imagined Emma's excitement, but he wanted to do more. He started thinking of other ways to help them. His next idea was to help with their food. Robert found out which grocery store was closest to their apartment building. He went to the store and talked to the manager. He told the manager that he wanted to help some families in the neighborhood. Robert gave the manager money and asked him to reduce the bills for certain families when they came shopping. He gave the manager Sarah's name and told him to take $50 off her bill every time she shopped. The manager thought this was a wonderful idea. He promised to help Robert keep it secret. A few days later, Sarah went grocery shopping. She was worried because she did not have much money that week. She had to work fewer hours because Emma had been sick, and that meant less money. Sarah picked out only the most important things: milk, bread, some chicken and vegetables. When she got to the checkout, she was ready to pay $45. But a cashier looked at the computer screen and smiled. "Good news," she said. "You have a credit on your account. Your total today is 0. Sarah was confused. "A credit? I don't understand." The cashier called the manager over. The manager smiled at Sarah. "Sometimes good things happen to good people," he said. "Someone wanted to help some families in the neighborhood. Your family was chosen." Sarah felt tears in her eyes. She could not believe that someone would be so kind to her and Emma. She thanked the manager many times and went home with groceries. She thought she could not afford. Robert continued to find ways to help them. He sent flowers to Sarah at the hospital with a note that said, "For someone who takes care of others, from a friend who cares." He paid for Emma's school lunch account so she could eat good meals every day. Sarah started to feel like she had a guardian angel watching over her and Emma. She did not know who was helping them, but she felt grateful every day. At the same time, Robert kept going to the park. He went there every day, hoping to see Emma. Most days, she was there. She would sit on her bench and talk to her teddy bear while Robert fed the pigeons. Robert began to feel like Emma was his friend. Even though they had not really talked yet, he looked forward to seeing her every day. She made him feel less lonely. One day, Emma noticed that Robert looked sad. She walked over to where he was sitting with the pigeons. "Are you okay?" she asked. "You look sad today." Robert was surprised that Emma had come to talk to him. He smiled at her. "I'm okay, little one. Thank you for asking. What's your name?" "I'm Emma," she said. "And this is Mr. Buttons." She held up her teddy bear. "Hello, Emma and Mr. Buttons," Robert said. "I'm Robert. I've seen you here before. Do you come to the park often?" Emma sat down on the grass next to Robert's bench. "I come here when my mom Is working. She works at the hospital. She's a nurse. That's a very important job, Robert said. Your mom must be very caring, Emma nodded. She is. She takes care of sick children. But sometimes I wish someone would take care of her. She works so hard and she's always tired. Robert's heart felt warm and sad at the same time. This little girl was still worried about her mother, just like when he first heard her wish. I'm sure your mom knows how much you love her, Robert said gently. Emma looked at Robert with her big, serious eyes. Do you have a family? She asked. Robert felt a pain in his chest. My wife died a few months ago, he said. She was my family. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, she said. That must make you very sad, Robert nodded. It does. But talking to you makes me feel better, Emma smiled. Talking to you makes me feel better too. You're nice. From that day on, Emma and Robert became friends. Emma would come to the park and sit with Robert while he fed the pigeons. She would tell him about school and about her mother. Robert would listen and ask questions. Emma did not know that Robert was the one helping her and her mother. She just knew that lately good things had been happening to them. Her mother seemed less worried about money. They had better food at home. Emma had new school supplies and clothes, but Emma still had the same wish. She still wanted her mother to have a father. She still talked about this wish, and Robert still listened to every word. Robert was beginning to understand that helping with money and supplies was not enough. Emma and Sarah needed more than that. They needed someone to care about them. They needed family. And Robert was beginning to understand that he needed them too. For the first time since his wife died, he felt like he had a reason to get up in the morning. He had people to care about. He was starting to think that maybe they could help each other in ways that money could not buy. Robert had been helping Emma and Sarah for 2 months now. He had also been talking to Emma in the park every day. She had become the bright spot in his day, the reason he looked forward to getting up each morning. But Robert wanted to do more and just help them secretly. He wanted to really be part of their lives. He wanted to meet Sarah properly and let her know who he was. The problem was, he did not know how to do this without seeming strange. One morning, Robert had an idea. He remembered that his wife Margaret had volunteered at St. Mary's Hospital for many years. She had loved working there, especially with the children. Robert had donated money to the hospital after Margaret died, but he had never visited it. Robert decided to go to the hospital and see if he could volunteer there. Maybe he would meet Sarah naturally that way. Maybe he could find a way to be part of their lives without scaring them. Robert put on his best clothes and drove to St. Mary's Hospital. It was a big building with many windows. Robert felt nervous. As he walked through the front doors. At the information desk, Robert asked to speak to someone about volunteering. The woman at the desk smiled and called someone on the phone. A few minutes later, a woman in a business suit came to meet Robert. Her name was Mrs. Williams, and she was in charge of volunteers at the hospital. I'm so glad you want to help, Mrs. Williams said as she led Robert to her office. We always need more volunteers, especially people who can work with children. Robert told Mrs. Williams about his wife Margaret and how she had loved volunteering at hospitals. He said he wanted to do something meaningful with his time. Mrs. Williams was impressed with Robert. She could tell he was a kind man who really wanted to help. She decided to give him a chance. We have a program where volunteers read to children in the pediatric ward, Mrs. Williams said. Would you be interested in that? Robert's heart jumped. The pediatric ward was where Emma had said her mother worked. That sounds perfect, he said. Mrs. Williams explained that Robert would need to go through some training and background checks first. This would take about 2 weeks. Robert said he understood and that he would wait. 2 weeks later, Robert started volunteering at the hospital. He came in 3 times a week to read stories to the children. He was nervous at first, but the children loved him. He had a gentle voice and a patient way of explaining things. On his 3rd day of volunteering, Robert was reading to a group of children when he looked up and saw Sarah walking down the hall. She was wearing her white nurse uniform and carrying a clipboard. Robert's heart started beating fast. This was the first time he had seen Sarah up close since that day in the park. She looked tired, but she had a kind face. She was checking on the children in the room where Robert was reading. "How are you doing today, Tommy?" Sarah asked one of the boys in the group. "Good, Nurse Sarah," the boy said. "This man is reading. It's a really good story." Sarah looked at Robert for the first time. She smiled politely. "Thank you for reading to the children," she said. "I'm Sarah. I work in this ward." Robert stood up and shook her hand. "I'm Robert," he said. "I just started volunteering here. I enjoy spending time with the children." Sarah noticed how gentle Robert was with the children. She also noticed that he looked familiar, but she could not remember where she had seen him before. "Have we met before?" Sarah asked. Robert's heart raced. He did not want to lie, but he also did not want to tell her the whole truth yet. "I think I've seen you at the park," he said. "I go there often to feed the pigeons." Sarah's face lit up. "Yes, that's where I've seen you. My daughter Emma goes to that park." "She's mentioned a nice man who feeds the pigeons," Robert smiled. "Emma is a wonderful little girl. She's very polite and caring." "Thank you," Sarah said. "She is special to me." Over the next few weeks, Robert and Sarah began to talk more at the hospital. Robert was always professional and kind. He never tried to get too personal or ask too many questions. But Sarah found herself looking forward to seeing him. Sarah noticed that Robert was different from other volunteers. He seemed to really care about the children. He would remember their names and ask about their families. He would bring small gifts sometimes, like books or toys. The children loved Robert, too. They would ask for him by name. "Where is Mr. Robert?" they would say. "We want him to read to us?" One day, Sarah was having a particularly hard day at work. They had been very busy, and she had been working for 12 hours straight. She was tired and feeling overwhelmed. Robert noticed that Sarah looked stressed. During his break, he went to find her. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. Sarah looked up from her paperwork. She was surprised that Robert had noticed how she was feeling. Most people did not pay attention to how tired the nurses were. "I'm fine," Sarah said automatically. "Just a long day." Robert could see that she was not fine. "Would you like to take a break?" he asked. "I could stay with your patients for a few minutes." Sarah was touched by Robert's offer. Volunteers were not supposed to watch patients alone, but Robert's kindness made her feel better anyway. "That's very sweet of you," Sarah said. "But I can't leave my patients. I just need to finish this paperwork." Robert nodded. "I understand, but if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here." Sarah looked at Robert with surprise. It had been a long time since anyone had offered to listen to her problems. "Thank you," she said. "That means a lot to me." A few days later, Sarah was eating lunch alone in the hospital cafeteria when Robert sat down at her table. "Do you mind if I join you?" he asked. Sarah smiled. "Of course not. I would like the company." They talked about the children in the ward and about how much they both enjoyed working with them. Robert told Sarah about his wife Margaret and how she had loved volunteering at hospitals. Sarah told Robert about how she had always wanted to be a doctor, but she had to stop her education when Emma was born. She explained that being a single mother made it hard to go back to school. Robert listened carefully to everything Sarah said. He could hear the sadness in her voice when she talked about her dreams. He could also hear how much she loved Emma. "You're a wonderful mother," Robert told Sarah. "Emma is lucky to have you." Sarah felt tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing enough for her." "You're doing more than enough," Robert said. "I can tell that Emma loves you very much." After that day, Robert and Sarah began eating lunch together sometimes. They would talk about their lives and their dreams. Sarah found that Robert was easy to talk to. He was a good listener, and he never judged her. Sarah also noticed that Robert seemed lonely. He would talk about his wife, Margaret, with such love, but she could tell he missed having a family. One day, Sarah had an idea. The hospital was having a charity event for the children's ward. It was a dinner where families could come and meet the staff who took care of their children. "Would you like to come to the charity dinner?" Sarah asked Robert. "You could meet some of the families of the children you read to." Robert was excited about the idea. I would love to come, he said. Sarah smiled. Good, you can sit at my table. I'll be there with Emma? Robert's heart jumped. He would finally get to meet Emma officially as Sarah's friend instead of just the man who fed pigeons in the park. The night of the charity dinner, Robert dressed in his best suit. He was nervous but excited. He arrived at the hospital early and helped set up tables and chairs. When Sarah arrived with Emma, Robert felt his heart fill with joy. Emma was wearing a pretty blue dress and her hair was brushed neatly. She looked like a little princess. Sarah brought Emma over to meet Robert. Emma, this is my friend Robert from the hospital. He's the volunteer I told you about. Emma looked up at Robert with her big eyes. For a moment, Robert was worried that she might remember him from the park and say something about their conversations, but Emma just smiled politely. Hello, Mr. Robert, she said. Thank you for reading to the children at the hospital, Robert smiled back. Hello, Emma. Your mother has told me a lot about you. They sat down at the table together. Emma was on her best behavior, using her napkin and saying please and thank you. Robert was impressed by how well-mannered she was. During dinner, Emma talked about school and about her friends. She told Robert about her favorite subjects and about books she liked to read. Robert listened to every word. He asked Emma questions about her interests and made her laugh with funny stories. Sarah watched Robert and Emma talking together. She could see how much Robert enjoyed being around Emma. She could also see how much Emma liked Robert. You're very good with children, Sarah told Robert. I enjoy spending time with them, Robert said. They remind me of what's important in life. As the evening went on, Sarah found herself feeling something she had not felt in a long time. She felt like she was part of a family again. Robert fit so naturally with her and Emma. He was patient and kind, and he made them both feel special. When it was time to leave, Emma hugged Robert goodbye. Thank you for having dinner with us, Emma said. Robert hugged her back gently. Thank you for letting me join you. I had a wonderful time. Sarah shook Robert's hand. Thank you for coming. Emma and I both enjoyed having you there. After the charity dinner, Robert, Sarah, and Emma began spending more time together. Robert would invite them to dinner after Sarah's work shifts. Sometimes they would go to simple restaurants, and sometimes Robert would cook for them at his house. Emma loved going to Robert's house. It was so different from their small apartment. It had a big kitchen, a library full of books, and a garden where flowers grew. But what Emma loved most was how happy her mother seemed when they were there. Your house is beautiful, Sarah told Robert the first time he invited them over. Robert looked around at his big, empty house. It's too big for just me, he said. It feels more like a home when you and Emma are here. Sarah felt warm inside when Robert said this. She had been alone for so long that she had forgotten what it felt like to have someone care about her. And Emma. Robert began to understand more about Sarah and Emma's daily life. He learned that Sarah worked long hours, sometimes 12 hours a day. He learned that Emma spent a lot of time alone, taking care of herself. I worry about leaving Emma alone so much, Sarah told Robert one evening. But I have to work to pay for our apartment and food. Robert wanted to help, but he knew he had to be careful. Sarah was proud, and she might not accept help if she knew how rich he was. What if Emma came to the hospital with you sometimes? Robert suggested. She could sit in the volunteer room and do her homework while you work. Sarah thought this was a wonderful idea. Would that be okay with the hospital? She asked. Robert smiled. I'll talk to Mrs. Williams. I'm sure she won't mind. Mrs. Williams was happy to let Emma come to the hospital. She set up a small desk in the volunteer room where Emma could do her homework and read books. Emma loved coming to the hospital. She would do her homework and then help Robert read to the younger children. She was very gentle with them, just like her mother. Emma is a natural with children, Robert told Sarah. She would make a wonderful doctor or nurse someday. Sarah's eyes lit up. She has always said she wants to be a doctor. She wants to help people like I do. Robert learned that Sarah had always dreamed of being a doctor herself. She had been studying medicine in college when she got pregnant with Emma. She had to stop her education to take care of her baby. Do you ever think about going back to school? Robert asked Sarah one day. Sarah sighed. I think about it all the time, but I can't afford to go back to school. And even if I could, I don't have time. I have to work to support Emma. Robert's heart hurt for Sarah. He could see how much she wanted to finish her education. He could also see how much she loved being a nurse, even though it was not her original dream. That night, Robert went home and made some phone calls. He called his friend Dr. Martinez, who was the head of the medical school at the university. I want to create a scholarship, Robert told Dr. Martinez. A scholarship for working parents who want to become doctors. Dr. Martinez was excited about the idea. That's wonderful, Robert. We need more programs like that. Robert worked with Dr. Martinez to create the scholarship program. It would pay for tuition, books, and living expenses for parents who wanted to go to medical school part-time. A few weeks later, Dr. Martinez called Sarah at the hospital. I have some exciting news, he told her. You've been selected to receive a new scholarship for working parents. It will pay for you to go to medical school part-time. Sarah could not believe what she was hearing. I don't understand. I didn't apply for any scholarship. Dr. Martinez explained that the scholarship was for people who worked in healthcare and had shown dedication to helping others. Your supervisor at the hospital recommended you, he said. Sarah felt tears in her eyes. This was the opportunity she had dreamed about for years. But she also felt scared. Could she really go back to school while still working and taking care of Emma? Sarah talked to Robert about the scholarship that evening. I can't believe this. It's happening, she said, but I'm scared. What if I can't handle school and work and Emma? Robert smiled at her. You're one of the strongest people I know, he said. If anyone can do it, you can. But what about Emma? She'd have to spend even more time alone. Robert had an idea. What if I help take care of Emma while you're in class? I could pick her up from school and help her with her homework. Sarah looked at Robert with surprise. You would do that? I would love to do that, Robert said. Emma is special to me. You both are. Sarah felt her heart fill with emotion. Robert was offering to help her achieve her dream. He was also offering to be there for Emma in a way that no one else had ever been. Why are you being so kind to us? Sarah asked. Robert looked into Sarah's eyes. Because you and Emma have brought joy back into my life. Before I met you, I was just existing. Now I have a reason to live again. Sarah felt tears in her eyes. You've brought joy into our lives too, she said. Over the next few months, Robert became a regular part of Sarah and Emma's daily routine. He would pick Emma up from school 3 days a week while Sarah was in classes. He would help Emma with her homework and take her to the park. Emma loved spending time with Robert. He was patient and kind, and he listened to her when she talked about her day. He also taught her things that she had never learned before. Robert is teaching me how to play chess, Emma told her mother one day. He says it will help me think better. Sarah was amazed at how much Emma had grown since Robert came into their lives. Emma seemed more confident and happy. She also seemed more mature. Robert is like a grandfather to me, Emma told her mother one evening. Is that okay? Sarah smiled. Of course it's okay. Robert cares about you very much. I think he cares about you too, Mom, Emma said. He looks at you the way people look at each other in movies. Sarah felt her cheeks get warm. She had noticed the way Robert looked at her too. She had also noticed that she looked forward to seeing him every day. One evening, Sarah was studying for a big exam when Emma got sick. Emma had a fever and was throwing up. Sarah was worried about her daughter, but she was also worried about missing her exam. Robert came over as soon as Sarah called him. He took one look at Emma and told Sarah to go take her exam. I'll take care of Emma, he said. You go to school? This exam is important. Sarah felt torn. She wanted to stay with Emma, but she also knew that Robert was right. The exam was important. For her future, are you sure? Sarah asked. Robert nodded. I'm sure Emma will be fine with me. Sarah went to school and took her exam. When she came home, she found Robert sitting by Emma's bed, reading her a story. Emma was feeling better, and she was smiling. Robert took good care of me, Emma told her mother. He made me soup and read to me all evening. Sarah looked at Robert with gratitude. Thank you, she said. I don't know what I would have done without you, Robert smiled. You don't have to thank me. This is what family does for each other. Sarah felt her heart stop. Robert had called them family. And she realized that's exactly what they had become. A few days later, Sarah received her exam results. She had gotten the highest score in her class. When she told Robert and Emma, they were both so proud of her. We should celebrate, Robert said. Let's go out to dinner. They went to a nice restaurant that Emma had never been to before. Emma felt very grown up, sitting at the table with Robert and her mother. During dinner, Emma looked at Robert and Sarah sitting across from each other. They were talking and laughing together. Emma could see how much they cared about each other. I have something to tell you both, Emma said suddenly. Robert and Sarah looked at her with attention. I want to thank you, Robert, Emma said, for taking care of my mom and me, for helping Mom go back to school, for being like a grandfather to me. Robert felt tears in his eyes. You don't need to thank me, Emma. You and your mother have given me more than I could ever give you, Emma smiled. I know you miss your wife, she said, but I think she would be happy that you're taking care of us. Robert could not speak for a moment. This 8-year-old girl had just said something so wise and kind that it took his breath away. You're right, Robert said finally. I think she would be happy. Emma looked at her mother and then at Robert. I think you two should get married, she said simply. Sarah almost choked on her water. Emma, she said, but Robert was smiling. What makes you think that, Emma? Because you love each other, Emma said. I can see it, and because we're already like a family. If you got married, we would be a real family. Sarah felt her face get red. She looked at Robert, wondering what he was thinking. Robert reached across the table and took Sarah's hand. Emma might be right, he said softly. We do love each other. And we are like a family. Sarah felt her heart beating fast. She had been falling in love with Robert for months, but she had not expected him to say it out loud. I love you too, Sarah said quietly. Emma clapped her hands together. I knew it, she said. This is the best day ever. Robert and Sarah looked at each other and started laughing. Emma had made it easy for them to say what they had been feeling for so long. So, does this mean we're going to be a real family? Emma asked. Robert looked at Sarah, asking the question with his eyes. Sarah smiled and nodded. Yes, she said. We're going to be a real family. Emma's wish had finally come true. Her mother was going to have a father, and Emma was going to have a grandfather who loved her. They were going to be a family, just like she had always dreamed. 1 year had passed since Robert first heard Emma's wish in the park. It was a sunny Sunday afternoon, and Robert had a special plan. He wanted to take Emma and Sarah back to the park where everything had started. Why are we going to the park today? Emma asked as they walked toward the entrance. Robert smiled mysteriously. I have something important to tell you both, he said. Sarah held Emma's hand as they walked to the bench where Emma used to sit alone. The same bench where she had made her wish about wanting her mother to have a father. This is where I first saw you, Emma, Robert said as they sat down together. You were sitting right here with Mr. Buttons. Emma looked around the park. So much had changed in the past year. She was 9 years old now, and she felt much older and wiser. Her mother was halfway through medical school and was doing very well. And Robert had become the most important person in their lives. I remember, Emma said. I used to come here alone when Mom was working. Sarah squeezed Emma's hand. You don't have to do that anymore, she said. Now, Robert is always there to take care of you. Robert looked at Emma with serious eyes. Do you remember what you used to say when you sat on this bench? He asked. Emma thought for a moment. I used to talk to Mr. Buttons about lots of things, she said. You used to say that you wanted your mom to have a father? Robert said gently. Do you remember that? Emma's eyes got wide. You heard me say that? Robert nodded. I was sitting over there, feeding the pigeons. I heard you say those words, and they changed my life. Sarah looked at Robert with surprise. You heard Emma's wish? Robert turned to face both of them. I heard Emma say, I want my mom to have a father. She works so hard and never has anyone to take care of her. Those words touched my heart in a way I had never felt before. Emma stared at Robert. So you knew about my wish from the very beginning? Yes, Robert said. And I decided that I wanted to help make your wish come true. Sarah was beginning to understand. Is that why you started volunteering at the hospital? Robert nodded. I wanted to meet you properly. I wanted to find a way to be part of your lives. Emma was quiet for a moment, thinking about everything Robert had told her. So when you helped us with groceries and school supplies, that was you? Robert smiled. That was me. I wanted to help you both, but I didn't want to scare you by doing it all at once. Sarah felt tears in her eyes. You've been taking care of us from the very beginning, she said. You've been taking care of me too, Robert said. Before I met you and Emma, I was lost. I had money, but I didn't have a reason to live. You both gave me a purpose again. Emma stood up and hugged Robert tightly. Thank you for listening to my wish, she said. Robert hugged her back. Thank you for making the wish, he said. It brought us all together. Sarah wiped tears from her eyes. I can't believe you heard Emma's wish and decided to help us. That's the most beautiful thing anyone has ever done for us. Robert looked at Sarah with love in his eyes. I have something else to tell you both, he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Sarah gasped when she saw it. Sarah, Robert said, getting down on one knee, I love you more than I ever thought possible. And Emma, I love you like you're my own granddaughter. Will you both let me be part of your family forever? Sarah started crying happy tears. Yes, she said. Yes, of course. Emma jumped up and down with excitement. This is the best day ever, she said. Robert stood up and put the ring on Sarah's finger. Then he hugged both of them at the same time. We're really going to be a family, Emma said. A real family. Over the next few months, Robert, Sarah, and Emma planned their wedding. It was going to be a small ceremony just for the people who mattered most to them during this time. Robert also made another important decision. He talked to his lawyer about adopting Emma legally. I want Emma to be my granddaughter officially, Robert told the lawyer. I want her to have my name and to know that she will always be part of my family. When Robert told Emma about the adoption, she was so happy that she cried. Does this mean you'll really be my grandfather? She asked. Robert said, Forever. And always, Emma hugged him tightly. I've always wanted a grandfather, she said, and now I have the best one in the world. Robert also had another surprise for Sarah. He had been working with the hospital to create a special program for medical students who were also parents. I want to create a daycare center at the hospital, Robert told Sarah. So that parents, you can have their children close by while they study and work. Sarah was amazed by Robert's generosity. You think of everything, she said. I think of what would make your life easier, Robert said. That's what people do when they love each other. The wedding day finally arrived. It was a beautiful spring day, and they decided to have the ceremony in the park where everything had started. Emma was the flower girl, and she wore a pretty pink dress. Sarah wore a simple white dress that made her look like a princess. Robert wore his best suit and had the biggest smile anyone had ever seen. The ceremony was held right next to the bench where Emma used to sit. The same bench where she had made her wish about wanting her mother to have a father. As Robert and Sarah said their vows, Emma stood between them, holding both of their hands. I promise to love you and take care of you for the rest of my life. Robert said to Sarah, I promise to love you and to be grateful every day for the family you've given us, Sarah said to Robert. When the minister said, You may kiss the bride, Emma cheered louder than anyone. After the ceremony, they had a small party in Robert's backyard. Emma gave a speech that made everyone cry happy tears. A year ago I made a wish, Emma said. I wished that my mom could have a father. I didn't know that Robert was listening to my wish. I didn't know that he would become the best grandfather in the world. She looked at Robert and Sarah. Now, we're a real family. My mom has a father, and I have a grandfather. But most importantly, we all have each other. Robert stood up and hugged Emma. Thank you for making that wish, he said. Thank you for bringing us all together. After the party, Robert, Sarah, and Emma went back to the park one more time. They sat on the bench together, watching the pigeons that Robert still fed every day. Do you have any new wishes? Robert asked Emma. Emma thought for a moment. I wish that all children could have families like ours, she said. I wish that no child would have to be alone. Sarah smiled at her daughter. That's a beautiful wish, she said. Robert looked at Emma with pride. Maybe we can help make that wish come true too, he said. Emma looked at him with excitement. How? Well, Robert said, I have a lot of money that I want to use to help people. Maybe we can create programs to help children who don't have families. Sarah nodded. We could create a foundation, she said. We could help children and families who need support. Emma clapped her hands together. We could call it the Emma Foundation, she said. Robert and Sarah laughed. I think that's a perfect name, Robert said. As the sun began to set, Robert, Sarah, and Emma stood up from the bench. They were no longer three separate people who needed each other. They were a family. Are you ready to go home? Sarah asked. Emma took Robert's hand and Sarah's hand. Yes, she said. Let's go home. As they walked out of the park together, Emma looked back at the bench one more time. She remembered sitting there alone, wishing for her mother to have a father. She remembered feeling sad and lonely. Now she was walking home with her mother and her grandfather. She was part of the family that loved her and took care of her. Her wish had come true in the most wonderful way possible. Thank you, Emma whispered to the wind, hoping that somehow, somewhere, someone was listening to wishes just like hers. Robert heard Emma's whisper and smiled. He had been that someone listening to her wish, and now he would spend the rest of his life making sure that Emma and Sarah knew how much they were loved. The three of them walked home together, their hearts full of love and gratitude. Emma's simple wish had changed all of their lives. It had brought them together and made them a family, and they lived happily ever after, just like in the fairy tales that Robert read to the children at the hospital. But this was not a fairy tale. This was real life, and it was better than any story because it was theirs. Years later, when Emma was grown up and had children of her own, she would bring them to the same park. She would sit on the same bench and tell them the story of how a little girl's wish brought a family together, and she would tell them that sometimes, if you wish with all your heart for something good and pure, the universe finds a way to make it come true. The Emma Foundation grew to help thousands of children and families over the years. Robert, Sarah, and Emma worked together to make sure that no child would have to face the world alone. Emma's wish had not only brought her family together, it had also brought hope and love to countless other families, and that was the greatest gift of all. The park still stands today, with the same bench where Emma made her wish. Sometimes, if you sit quietly and listen carefully, you might hear the whispers of other children making wishes of their own, and if you're lucky, you might be the one who helps make those wishes come true.